Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Color Out of Space? Oh, stick around and find out. There is no song I could sing that captures anything about this insane movie. Oh my gosh. So I'll just skip that and get right into the usuals. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. This is my uncut review of 2019's Color Out of Space, which just released today as I record this on Blu-ray. If you never heard of this movie, or didn't ever see anything about it in theaters, that's not surprising. It had a very small distribution. That's why I was not able to review it in theaters, even though I did want to. So I was very much looking forward to checking this out. Oh my gosh. The synopsis on IMDb, there's a couple of them. I'll read them both. First is short. It says, a secluded farm is struck by a strange meteorite which has apocalyptic consequences for the family living there, and possibly the world. And then the longer one, which I don't think is any more spoilery for being longer, says, a story of cosmic terror about the Gardeners, a family who moves to a remote farmstead in rural New England to escape the hustle of the 21st century. They are busy adapting to their new life when a meteorite crashes into their front yard. The mysterious aerolite seems to melt into the earth, infecting both the land and the properties of space-time with a strange, otherworldly color. To their horror, the Gardner family discovers that this alien force is gradually, I'm going to replace just one word, affecting. I think the word they use there is a little too spoilery. The Gardner family discover that this alien force is gradually affecting every life form that it touches, including them. So yeah, let's talk about what this crazy beast is. It's based on a short story by H.P. Lovecraft, which should be some indicator of what this experience is, but not near enough. There have been plenty of movies that are based on or inspired by the work of H.P. Lovecraft. This is one of the most jacked up and disturbing movies I've ever seen. Thankfully, though, this is really important for me in horror movies, to make a horror movie work. It gives time to establishing the characters and the relationships between those characters, especially, if it's an ensemble cast, as this one is. And it gives them a grounded quality that is, if not relatable, at least we could say realistic. This family is dealing with family issues that many families deal with. And I feel like it handles them respectfully. The effects of the meteor, which kind of invades what, at the opening of this movie, feels like a very normal family drama. It really, I don't want to say it's a slow burn, but the way it starts out is so normal and so grounded, which I really appreciate. And then it has this slow build as the meteor begins affecting the characters and the environment. Family members start to mentally and emotionally come unraveled. I'm going to dance around a whole bunch, so if you're worried about spoilers, you shouldn't have to fear that in this review. I'm going to dance around and be vague quite a bit, but still hopefully give you an idea of the feel of what this movie is, so you can hopefully know, even if you haven't seen it, if it's likely to be an experience that is meant for you. So anyway, the family members start to mentally and emotionally come unraveled, with physical effects manifesting increasingly as well throughout the story. As I said, it starts as in a very grounded and realistic place, but then slowly and steadily builds to the increasingly bizarre, until by the end just cuts loose with wild, unleashed sci-fi horror. And I think I saw one trailer for this. I'm not going to say it's true for every trailer out there, because I haven't done a search today on what trailers are available, but the one trailer I did see, thankfully, did not near spoil visually where this movie eventually goes. And watching the trailer, I also wasn't sure. I was like, is this just going to be a weird movie? You know, I mean, like I didn't get a sense in the trailer of how grounded the relationships would be with the family. You know, and so I really appreciated a lot that the movie was compared to what the trailer showed me. There were plenty of surprises for me in this movie. I really, really love that. So it's a rare gem for me in that I like movies that are very character-oriented, character-driven, and that also have crazy sci-fi or fantastical spectacle of some kind, you know, that visually and conceptually go in bizarre, weird, creative, imaginative places. You usually don't see those two things combined. Either it's usually a very grounded story in terms of characters, and they just don't go too crazy with the imagination, or the imagination is set loose, a whole bunch of money is thrown at it, it's a visual spectacle, but the characters don't really have any layers to them or any kind of like drama going on among them that feels very grounded and psychologically realistic. And this movie has both. It has what feels like a psychologically realistic experience, you know, I mean, like people are, as I think they should in many movies, becoming unhinged when the otherworldly begins to happen. You know, they react appropriately. And, you know, when characters at some point in the movie start doing some of those horror movie things where you're like, why are they doing that? That's so stupid. You can easily say to yourself, oh, that's right. They're all going a little bit nuts. You know, they are none of them thinking rationally, you know. And so psychologically, this movie is very acceptable to me. I just am on board with what it does. It also has some brief moments of humor, not a lot of them, just some very brief ones, and usually of the what the crap variety. You know, it's like, I mean, what I just saw is so absurd that it makes me laugh, you know. So it's not absurd because that makes it sound like it's funny, but like so bizarre and like off. Anyway, let me talk about the cast a bit. Great performances by all, as far as I'm concerned, including a solid child actor whose name I don't know, first time I've ever seen him in anything. But I think what makes his performance work for me is that he's not asked to do what he cannot do. So often when you have child actors that are a major central part of a story, they're also being asked to do things that just don't feel real because they're just a kid. They're not emotionally developed. Their craft hasn't developed near as much, you know, as it you know has by adults who are able to like access emotions and so therefore be able to present those emotions in a way that feels and comes across as fairly realistic, you know. And so this is a combination of, I think, a solid child actor and also a script that's written and a movie that's directed and edited in a way that really doesn't require, you know, more than this actor is capable of. Now, for all I know, this actor is capable of tons, is like a Dakota Fanning, you know, type rare unicorn of a child actor. But the script and the scenes didn't call for that, and yet I felt like he was acting like a real kid, you know. It didn't feel like, oh man, this is some bad kid acting going on. So I really, really appreciate that. That wins some serious points with me. Nicolas Cage, though, is certainly the standout. Now, a lot of these other faces I didn't recognize. The woman who plays his wife, I've seen her in a bunch of things before as a supporting actor, but I don't know her name. She did a really solid job in everything that she did, and she had to do some varied stuff. Some of it bizarre, some of it going to a very vulnerable place, and yeah, she did a great job. Both of the teenager actors I thought were, you know, really solid. Again, they weren't being asked to do things that I think were beyond them. Nicolas Cage is really where I'd want to spend more time talking. He is an actor that, you know, if you've seen a number of his movies, you kind of have an idea of what you're maybe going to be in for. He makes very often some very daring, some bold choices that for me can 50% of the time fall flat on their face. I'm just like, man, he's really going for it, and it's just not landing for me at all. But then there are other times where I feel like, man, if you set Nicolas Cage loose with the right script, the right environment, the right tone, then like he can totally land, you know. And so, yeah, it's not that I think that he's like a one note actor. I think he actually has some good range. Maybe not varied range in terms of like being a character actor that can do all kinds of shades of different types of colorful characters, you know. But I think as far as like his emotional range, his like how loud his acting is and how subtle it is, he has a lot of range in that regard. And it's just when does he choose to do what that can really make or break the movies that he's in. And I felt like he was nearly perfect for me as the warm husband and father, and also a man who becomes maniacally unhinged. As I said, he can be really hit or miss for me because of the nature of the choices he makes. But this movie, he felt right on with what each of his scenes called for, which was so great to see him just kind of firing on all cylinders. As far as the visuals go, I was really surprised to learn that this movie has an estimated budget of $6 million. I don't know what Nicolas Cage's salary was, or maybe if he willingly took a cut in pay. I don't know how much of that would have gone to visual effects or what, but I wouldn't have guessed that this movie had merely a $6 million budget because of the effects and production quality, which all felt really, really good to me. There were some great practical effects that were obviously inspired by John Carpenter's The Thing, which that's my favorite monster movie of all time, and so that certainly is going to win some points with me just because I love the design of that monster. I love practical effects over CG effects, and so this movie definitely won some major points with me on both counts. But it also has great use of simple on-set lighting and maybe some post-production coloring that they did. They're just using the color scheme a lot, the lighting, coloring, the sound design, all to create a subtle but constantly present effect of this meteor and what it is doing to the environment, you know. And so you can really create an otherworldly quality with some of these very simple techniques, and I thought that they really showed that, demonstrated that in this movie. And there are certainly digital effects as well, peppered throughout the movie, but they're used conservatively and they play to their strengths rather than saying, hey, I'm going to hang out here for like 10 seconds and let you get a real good look at me, you know, and that's when effects really fall short for me. I want visual effects, computer effects, to get in, do what they're meant to do, and as quickly as possible get out of the way, and if need be, you know, if they want to stick around as a visual concept, let practical effects replace them as soon as humanly possible. And so I didn't feel like this was a movie that was sparse in its, you know, visual effects of otherworldliness. It just used different techniques to create the totality of those effects, and all of those effects were playing to their strengths in the way that they were used. So it didn't raise the bar in quality for like fidelity, I guess, of visual effects, realism, or if you want to call it that, of visual effects. I think in some ways it raised the bar for execution, given the resources that they seem to have had. Anyway, the movie felt visually rich from beginning to end, and increasingly so throughout. Now let's talk about themes. Is there anything of worthwhile moral, philosophical, or spiritual significance going on in the themes of this thing that might bring about some worthwhile thought or conversation? The thing I thought would be kind of the most standout thing was that the teenage daughter is into some form of Wicca. What was interesting to me about that is that although it wasn't played as like something that was bad by any means, it certainly was demonstrated to be powerless against what this family got swept up in. And in fact, arguably it was even used to make the situation worse. So I thought that was very interesting. Very often in like H.P. Lovecraft stories, you'll have some religion in there, usually some form of Christianity, and that is shown to be powerless against the encroaching otherworldly horror. But this time for them to swap in, Wicca, was very interesting to me. And I found that actually to be conducive with my worldview as well, that it would be found to be powerless in a situation like this. But I think the major themes have to do with mortality, and I think that watching a movie like this there are going to be many people that shouldn't watch this movie. Many people that it's going to take their mind to places that are going to be unhealthy for them. But I think for some people, I believe it was for me on this viewing, it was a good experience. It certainly made me think of, I'm not going to say why it made me feel these things. I think if you watch the movie, you'll know why I say this. I'm dancing around it right now. But I think this movie can bring about thought about your own mortality, losing your mental faculties, seeing your body deteriorate, the unknown of death. As believers, we have some details, and some very wonderful details that give us hope about life after this one. And yet there is still some unknown, that if we're honest, many of us as believers still feel hesitation and maybe even anxiety about, and so this, I think, can really bring out those feelings and lead us to reflect on those kinds of things. This movie, I think, can also lead us to reflect on mortality of our loved ones, watching loved ones suffer, and which there were some really hard scenes, especially as a dad watching this movie. I was just like, oof. In fact, there was a point where I was like, I'm not sure that it's going to be good for me to keep watching this if they stay in this mode for much longer. And thankfully they didn't stay in that mode any longer than I think could healthfully handle. But it really made an impact on me as a dad. So watching loved ones suffer, and watching them both mentally and physically deteriorate in disturbing ways. There are some things in here that I think parallel to caring for a deteriorating loved one, who their body and their mind are both deteriorating, and so they're dependent on you for everything. And even like there is potentially a reference, intended or not, to feelings of resentment that can develop among those, who are having to care constantly for someone that is completely dependent upon them, So I think there are some real parallels here to really heavy things that typically in modern American culture we do not face like so many have throughout the centuries, and like so many still are in other parts of the world. And so I think an experience like this, that although it's bizarre sci-fi, clearly seems to be evoking, drawing upon these very real, heavy human issues of mortality. I think there can be some real value in that, and I think there was value for me. Because it brought those things to my mind, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can handle this. And then there was kind of a thought in my mind, maybe put there by the Holy Spirit, that said, okay, Peter, yes, these are horrible realities that you need to contemplate, and you need to recognize the hope that's found in me as you consider these things. Don't simply live in denial and refuse to ever think about these things, but allow yourself to truly ponder these heavy, heavy realities that others face, that you may one day be called upon to face. And then, as you process that, turn to me and truth to provide your hope as you think about those things. So anyway, yeah, I found it to be very worthwhile, surprisingly, in that way. Now, I have no idea what your tastes are in movies, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Peter, skip renting this one and buy it. Oh my gosh, just buy it. It's disturbing and thought-provoking in sobering and useful ways if you allow it to be. Oh, there's my phone going off. It's not merely icky, like, say, Hereditary, which just kind of made you feel ugh after watching it. This is disturbing in some ultimately useful ways, and also just weird in some entertaining ways. It has both grounded family characters and dramatic situations and bizarre otherworldly concepts and sci-fi visuals. It's a movie that will likely reward and remain disturbing even on multiple repeat viewings, and one you're going to want to show to everyone that you are confident can handle it, which is probably going to be a very small number of people in your personal social circles. The most disturbing and enthralling sci-fi horror movie that I have seen in at least 15 to 20 years. It is very likely to be my top movie of 2020. You can get my spoiler-filled reactions to Color Out of Space, and oh my gosh, there were some jaw-dropping, like seat-hugging, spoilery moments that I talk about in that video. That's just one of many perks available for your support at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. No MPAA rating for this one, not sure why, just kind of like snuck under the radar, I guess, but I would describe it as R-ish, for violence, for gore, for scary and disturbing images, for disturbing subject matter, and for language. That would be my roundup if I were to give it. But I'm not the MPAA, so if you really rely on them, you're out of luck. Those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that bell to stay connected. I want to thank Spirit Blade Insiders, all of you, for making this review possible. Again, more information at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. And then I hope you'll join us soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We've got a ton going on here at Spirit Blade Productions and Christian Geek Central, including our in-depth Bible study for geeks, movie, game, and other entertainment reviews or commentary, live streams, Christian geek news, original audio dramas, and tons more. And on top of all that, you can become a Spirit Blade insider with an influential voice and get access to exclusive content and rewards. It's your involvement as a patron that will keep all of this going and growing, so I want to thank you for your consideration in that. For more information, please check out our Patreon page through the link below at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions. Thanks for listening.